I'd like to begin with doing an arriving meditation. That'll be maybe 10, 15 minutes, not a long meditation. And then I'd like to do the Dharma talk. And the talk today is going to be about patience, cultivating patience from the perspective of early Buddhism. And then we'll do a guided meditation about patience. And somewhere in there, depending on the time, we're going to have Emily guide us in a little movement. And then at the end, we'll have some moments of Q&A and group reflection. I have a reflection question that you might like to explore related to patience. So with that said, I just invite you now to begin to find your posture, whether that's sitting or lying down. Allow awareness to settle into the body, to find the body. You might begin to notice the places where the body's touching the floor and the chair. And sensing and feeling the weight and pressure of the body. You might also notice any places where the body's touching the chair, or you might rest and notice the hands touching each other or your lap. Just opening to the sensations of touching. And as you begin to receive and feel the body sitting here, you might take a few moments to just notice the aliveness of the body, all the different kinds of physical sensations that are present. You might gently notice which sensations are obvious and which are subtle. You might notice if there's any places in the body that you don't wish to contact or feel. Let that be okay. And while you continue to be present to the feeling sense of the body, you might be curious about places of tension or bracing. I just invite you to take a few moments now to scan the face, around the eyes, the jaws, inviting anything that can soften to soften a little more. And just making your way through the body, through the shoulders, the torso, the arms and hands, all the way down to the feet. Softening what might soften. Breathing in, softening the whole body. Breathing out, softening the whole body. And with gentleness and ease, see if you can find in your own body where the breath is felt most clearly. It might be at the nostrils, the throat, the chest, the belly. It might be a sense of the whole torso moving. Take some moments to locate that spot for yourself. And invite you for the next 5 minutes or so to stay on that place. Once you've located, let the attention center there. And then just begin to feel and receive the breath, moving through that spot in the body, centering the attention on the breath coming and going. Just for now, setting the intention to be present with only the breath. In a sense, we're giving up diversity of experience for just a simple unification of body and mind. whenever the mind is distracted, and you wake back up and notice that. So see that as the natural part of the process. Just holding yourself in the spirit of friendliness and patience, and coming back to rest on the breath. And as we close this arriving meditation, may we find some gratitude or appreciation for the chance to be here together, for the chance to free ourselves from old ways of being that no longer serve us. And the chance to be generous with yourself and with others by being here and offering your full attention. Thank you, everyone. Just take your time now, if you wish, to just find a comfortable position and seat. Just let yourself relax and receive the Dharma talk. And please remember to take what's useful and let the rest go. So what I want to talk about in a broad way today is what's called the parami, or the perfection of patience. And I'll talk about that, explain that a little bit more, but I wanted to give you kind of that large overview of what the topic is. I'd like to start with just talking about and sharing a little bit about my retreat experience. I recently, last week, just got back from a 9-day silent retreat. And the purpose of the retreat was to cultivate samadhi. That's also known as wise concentration. And it's part of the Buddhist path to awakening, known as the Eightfold Path. And wise concentration is a part of a group of 3 steps, if you will, that include wise effort, mindfulness, and wise concentration. So that's why I thought I was going to go. I was going to go and have this extended time to, practice samadhi with a group of teachers that have a lot of experience teaching that. And so that's what I thought was going to happen. what actually happened is that, along with most of the retreatants, not all, but many of the retreatants, we ended up cultivating patience and loving kindness for ourselves and each other. I wasn't expecting that, but that's what happened, right? And I want to just say that the instructions for cultivating samadhi were super simple, and they didn't really change very much through the week. And they were similar to what I just did with you. They would say, find the body, which basically means to start to notice and feel and be present to the body. And then they would invite you to notice where in the body you're holding any tension and begin to soften and relax. And as we all know, relaxation supports both mindfulness and concentration. And then they would just invite us to begin to center the breath on the place where we could feel it most easily, and then stay in that place, at least for that meditation session. And samadhi is sometimes called attentive stillness. The mind, we're bringing it to the breath, and we're just, we're encouraging it to just stay there with the movement of the breath. And attentive stillness is a pretty good description of it in time. So we engaged in this process and from about 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. every day. And, it involves sitting, walking, eating, some instruction, Dharma talk. And what became very clear is that for me and for many others, that our mind really wasn't inclined to staying put on the breath for any extended periods of time. And that won't come as a surprise to many of you, right? Even in the daily meditations that you do at CML and IMCW, I'm sure that sometimes when you're practicing with the breath, you know what I'm talking about. And also, but when you're doing it for 9 days, I also started to, experience other mind states, like what we'll later talk about in the teachings are called the hindrances. So, restlessness, boredom, wanting something to happen that wasn't happening, hoping something would stop. I didn't have too much doubt, skeptical doubt about whether the practice was going to be helpful. But I certainly had my share of daydreaming and came to realize that I always thought that planning and imagining things was kind of like an aversion of the moment. Actually, what I discovered was that it was more like desire. It was pleasant. It's been pleasant for me to be in the mind like that. And again, that's not wrong, but it does keep me out of the present moment when my mind's caught up in that, because it's pleasurable. I didn't always make that connection. Anyway, I share this because we can get a lot of ideas about teachers and I just really appreciated being a practitioner and getting back in touch with what it's really like. Anyway, I just want to share that a turning point at the retreat came for me around day 6. Wow, there's no other way to describe it. It was like, if I haven't had the experience of clinging in a long time, this one really stood out. So it's day 6. And the desire to go home and be with my granddaughter and be in my house and be with my family and be with all my comfort started getting really strong. It just kind of came in the mind. I could really feel it. It was really strong. And at the same time, I started having all this aversion towards okay, I'm good here. I've had enough. I get it. I practice. This is good. So I like to say that my mind went into kind of high velocity clinging. And that may not seem like a small thing, but when you're in such a secluded environment, what's happening in your mind really stands out. We don't appreciate all the, we have so many distractions, but there in the silence, the social silence, you get to see the mind so clearly. At least that was the case for me. And sometimes the teachings say when you have like a strong clinging like that, it's as if the mind is imprisoned. And I could really relate to that. For the time that lasted, which I would say was about 10 hours or 12 hours, I was really governed by that desire and that aversion. And of course, I worked with it as skillfully as I could. And what eventually happened, right, is I made an effort. I made the efforts that I knew to make. And then it was like patience was needed, right? Patience to just kind of accept that that's the way it was, to kind of tolerate the activation of it, to kind of endure it. And it was, in a way, it felt like it was out of my hands. I kept making efforts, but there was no way my personal will was gonna just like turn that off. I wish, but that's not what happened. So eventually I got up around the next day and it was gone. It had passed. And so the teachings of impermanence also came. But it was a meaningful moment for me because it was such a amplified experience of clinging and the suffering that goes with that, as the Four Noble Truths tell us. And when that passes, and the freedom and the relief that the mind and the body feel when that's gone. So it really was the patience and kindness that supported this. Well, there's no maybe episode of clinging. That's kind of what it was. Had a beginning, middle, and end. So this leads me to just the next place, and that I want to just talk about a little bit, is just to talk about patience. And in the Pali Canon and in Pali language, patience is called khanti, and that's a Pali word. And it's normally translated as endurance, tolerance, or acceptance. But on the retreat, and as I've sat with it myself, it doesn't really seem, and other teachers have talked about this, that just viewing patience as endurance and tolerating and accepting isn't the fullest picture. It involves some kind of willingness to remain present to what's happening, to soften around what's happening, and to open to face whatever discomfort or difficulty or triggering might be there. And sometimes we might be provoked, right? In our everyday relationships, it could come through being provoked by a conversation or an event or another person. So I just invite you to think that it's more than just endurance and tolerance, because those sound a little teeth gritting, don't they? I mean, they feel like willful, like, So this is, really the invitation to be more spacious with what's happening and softer and kinder. And it's interesting in the teaching on the Paramis, which patience is one of 10, they say that the approximate cause of patience, in other words, what gives rise to patience, is seeing things as they are. Seeing things as they are. And also, what helps with patience is loving kindness. Pema Chodron once said that loving kindness is a synonym for patience. So I want to just go back to talk a little bit about meeting the hindrances on this retreat. And some would just want to go back to my retreat experience to talk about the hindrances. As many of you know, some of you know, I know we've covered them couple years ago, and typically in the morning classes, and typically if you go on retreat, most of the time it's pretty standard that one day one teacher is going to introduce and sort of explore the hindrances and some skillful ways to work with them. So in early Buddhism, these are mind states that are described as obstacles to spiritual progress. And I would say particularly in the mind training part of the Eightfold Path. Because when you're in meditation, that's when you really notice them the most clearly and fully. So just to name the 5 hindrances for those of you that aren't familiar, it's desire, aversion or ill will, old-fashioned words called sloth and torpor, but you might think of it as just like low energy, and also maybe not really having a clear motivation for why it is you're practicing, your purpose for practicing. That sometimes can lead to a low energy state. And then there's restlessness and worry, and then there's skeptical doubt. Now to put this through a contemporary psychological lens, we might just see these as the hindrances as part of our human psyche, our human conditioning. Some of us, because of our histories and our biology and our learning, will probably have more or less of these. And some of them will be stronger, others will be weaker. But you can also look at them as in a wholesome way, and that is that somewhere along the line, the central nervous system and the mind, you started to find these strategies adaptive or helpful. Maybe they helped with safety, or they helped cope with life situations. So just so you get a feel for that. The main thing I would want you to remember is that they're not bad. They're not bad. And there's nothing wrong with you for having them. It's just to see that, I think of it as, I think Zen does this a lot, but it came up for me on retreat. The hindrances, I think, are like, if the sun's out, it's like a cloud cover. The sun's still there, but these sort of like move over the mind and obscure the capacity to really see through them. They become very dominant in the mind. They occupy the mind. So just pause there and let you take a deep breath. Yeah. And me too. I want to just share, because I thought it could be helpful. This is really some instruction around your own meditation practice. when you're meditating, whether you're, trying to hold attention on different parts of the body so that you can explore them, whether you're doing a rain practice, but mostly when you're kind of doing a more gathering concentration practice like breath awareness. These are 3 things to remember when the hindrances show up. These are kind of like a big strategy. And we can talk about that more in the Q&A, but I'll just present them now. So the first one is you kind of discern, are they weak? Are they really taking me off of the breath, or am I still able to be pretty non-distracted, fully present? They're just sort of there, but they're not very strong. The instructions were to ignore that. Just ignore it, right? They're just in the background like noise. They're not really obscuring anything. They're not really taking you away from the moment. The second instruction was, if they're present in a more moderate or intense way, when they start to compete with the breath, then see if you can just let them be, being mindful that they're there, and still give the attention, the predominant attention, keep highlighting the breath. Keep highlighting the breath. Sharon Salzberg says that highlighting the breath is like being in an airport or a subway station and picking up a friend, and there's all kinds of people, and you want to focus on your friend, where your friend is, even though there's all this going on. And that's kind of an analogy, like you're still with the breath, you're present with it, but they're really starting to compete a little bit. So you see if you can kind of coexist with that. When they're really strong, the instruction was pull off of the breath and move into a rain practice. But not the rain practice so much, and that's a beautiful practice. The original rain practice really focused more on the not self part of the path, not claiming everything as me, mine, I, me, mine. And that was, the end was called non-identification. In this practice, we focused on that, right? More on the rain. Of course, we were being kind and loving, or that was encouraged. Loving kindness was always encouraged. But I found, for me, I'm only speaking for me, and try it for yourself, when you do pull off and investigate, notice if you just start dropping in the wisdom, a simple, oh, okay, aversion. Yeah, there it is. I feel it strong. I want this to go away. I don't like this. And I'm feeling it. I'm with it. I'm exploring it. And then that last piece, and I would say don't skip steps, right? That last piece is just to drop into the mind, not me, not mine. This is causes and conditions, including my own personal history, including all the things that are happening right now. This is the way the mind is showing up. And you'll have to see for yourself, but sometimes that would really bring me back. And it made me realize that a lot of times, it's just, we've talked about this, but that clinging, the separate self, what we might call the egoic self or the conditioned self or personality view or the assumed self, it's usually embedded when the mind is captured by like strong anxiety, strong anger, strong aversion, strong desire. And I do want to just mention that throughout all of this, it was loving kindness and patience that was really supportive. And the patience, help me and help all of us stay engaged rather than walk away and just, I'm done with this, right? It also supports patience, also supported wise effort, just continuing to make a wise effort. And in that process, we start to move away from, I can't stand this, or I can't be with this, to maybe something more gentle, like, may I soften around this? May I let this be? Because patience is really the heart of this talk, I want to be sure to address any confusions you might have about what patience looks like through a Buddhist lens. So I'm just actually going to read what Ajahn Susito wrote about the parami of patience. And if somebody later on, we'll do it later on, but he wrote a beautiful book called Ways to Cross Life's Floods. Ways to Cross Life's Floods. So this was sort of his a real focus of his practice and his teachings. So he says, patience is not numbing resignation to the difficulties of life. It doesn't mean that distress and suffering is all right. Patience doesn't mean shrugging things off and not looking to improve your behavior. It's not just about, oh, I'm great, I don't need to improve or put any energy or make any effort here. This one is, I thought, very insightful and not I don't think it would be our psychological view of patience. The practice of patience means bearing with dukkha. Remember, for those of you that don't know that term, it's a Pali term for dissatisfaction, painfulness. That could be emotional, physical. Sometimes we call it the ouch, hurt. The practice of patience means bearing with dukkha without the expectation that it will go away. How about that? Because that's sometimes that, our minds are very transactional. It's like, if I do this, I'm going to get this, right? If I do this, this will happen. If I do this, I'll get rid of the suffering. And it's not, this patience is really, this is the kind of patience you might need when you have a chronic illness, or you have situations that really aren't that changeable. There's not that much you can do about them other than be loving and patient and kind and do what you can. But it's moving away from that expectation that it'll go away, because that's just another form of desire and aversion hiding out. Patience is not meant to transform you into a doormat, but to act as a fire break on immediate impulses that will not bring about your welfare or the welfare of others. I like that language. It doesn't mean you're a doormat, but it's a fire break, right? And again, in this tradition, maybe different in other traditions, but in this tradition, non-harming is a deep, deep value. Not harming yourself and your others to the best of your ability. And I think that particular one has a lot of relevance to, what we're experiencing in the country today. It doesn't mean we don't make efforts, that we don't that we just put up with anything and everything. But we also use patience to notice, patience and mindfulness to notice when we're now lost in the very greed, hatred, and delusion that we oppose. And patience means giving up any kind of deadline. How about that? So that the mind is serene and equanimous, giving up any kind of deadline. Yeah, during this retreat, I gave up the deadline. I figured that if I were, the times that I went into deeper states of concentration, I appreciated them, I experienced them fully, and I didn't hang around thinking that they were going to meet any kind of deadline that I might have for them to show up. So I hope you can kind of see from just using my retreat experience, and later on I'll be eager to hear how you hold this patience, and also anything about the hindrances. I did think, I don't know who in the Sangha has said this, but I've heard it a couple of times. I was thinking about the words of, I think her name's Mary O'Malley, and she said, what's in the way is the way. Whatever you're experiencing is a doorway into a more spacious place. So rather than resisting discomfort, you can learn how to open to what you are experiencing and explore it. And that's kind of the point of the hindrances. We go on a retreat like this for myself, and I think, oh, I'm just going to learn about samadhi. I really learned about the hindrances. and how to be with them and navigate them, and how to have patience and to hold it all in loving kindness. So what's in the way is the way. So I hope anytime we come upon some challenge, some obstacle, we can remember that. What's in the way is the way. And as I close, I want to thank each of you for your interest. And I hope you'll remember, maybe hold on to bringing the spirit of patience and loving kindness to all the realms of your life. I mean, this can be applied everywhere, not just on the cushion. Think about your relationships, being patient with your relationships, being patient with how you do everyday activities, right? Kind of appreciating that so many things are a process, and you can rush them, but they won't be rushed, right? You can try to shortchange them, but it will have an effect. So again, thank you, all of you, for listening. And I do have a guided practice that is by, she was a student of Thich Nhat Hanh's, that I'd like to guide us in about, after Emily maybe gives us a stretch, and then we'll do that practice, and then we'll have some time for sharing and reflection and questions. So this meditation is by Kara Lingo. I don't normally just take someone's meditation, but this one I felt like was so wonderful and simple around patience that I decided to share it as it is. So when you're ready, this will be, maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll move into reflection, sharing, reflection, Q&A. So I just invite you to pause and begin to arrive in this body, in this breath, just as it is right now. Let yourself land. Let yourself be here. Notice and feel the weight of your body. And sense the places where it's touching the floor, the chair. Begin to notice the breath moving through you. The in-breath, the out-breath. For now, just let there be nothing you need to change or improve. Just allow yourself to be right here. Today we explore patience not as a tense waiting, but as a spacious, grounded presence. A willingness to be with life as it unfolds. And take another breath in and out here, maybe a little fuller. Maybe softening on the out breath. Patience often begins with softening. So often we resist the moment, wanting something to be different, quicker, easier. Notice if that's here now, wanting something to be different, quicker, easier. And if it is, you don't need to push it away. Just recognize it with kindness. You might even quietly say to yourself in the presence of wanting something to be different, quicker, and easier, you might say, yes, this too is a part of being human. If you can and are willing, bring to mind a place in your life where patience is being asked of you. It could be something small or something that's ongoing. A place where patience is being asked of you. And see if you can hold that place gently in your awareness, without fixing, without rushing. Just seeing where patience might be needed or might be beneficial. Just making a note of that, maybe an intention. And letting that recognition fall away for now. And just return to feeling your breath to help you stay rooted right here. With patience, the spirit of patience in the heart, begin to breathe in, saying, I open to this moment. Breathing out, I soften into what is here. Breathing in, I open to this moment. Breathing out, I soften into what is here. There is an ancient trust in patience. There's an ancient trust in patience. A knowing that even what is hard or unresolved now will shift in time. Like waves, like seasons. What might it feel like in your body to meet this moment with patience? Not needing to have all the answers, not needing things to resolve. Just the steady presence. This willingness to be with things as they are. Taking a few breaths here, see if you can feel into that space where you're just willing to be with things as they are. You might silently say to yourself, I can meet this moment with patience. I can meet this moment with patience. I allow myself to take my time, letting things unfold. And as we close, bring your attention back to the breath. Maybe sensing the body sitting here. And in a few moments, after I ring the bell, allow your eyes to open and see if you can carry this quality of patience into the rest of your day. Thank you.